Okay, for my book choice, I chose to do The Devil's Cup, Coffee, The Driving Force in History by Stuart Lee Allen. This book was actually written very comically. The guy that wrote this traveled all around the world trying to learn the history of coffee. And with coffee, it is very important. Everybody either loves it or hates it. They feel very strongly about it or they have no opinion at all. So I figured this would be an interesting read. But he starts in Ethiopia, and that is basically where they discovered the coffee. And then he travels all over the place. Like, he starts in Ethiopia, and it's like the birthplace. And then they go to Yemen and Arabia, and then Istanbul, the Ottoman Empire, and then Vienna, London, and then he goes to Paris, and then he somehow finds his way to like Brazil, and then America, and then he does a road trip on Route 66 all the way from New York down to or across to California. And instead of trying to find the best coffee, he tries to find the worst coffee, and it's pretty funny and all this stuff. But holy cow, it's amazing to me that there's so much more to just drinking coffee than what we thought. And in this book, it's so funny because you learn that it's either along the way, like in Ethiopia or other places, some people used it as a friendship ritual, and you would do the things and it would be like several rounds of the coffee. And then in some places, like, it was either religion or used as an aphrodisiac. And then like some countries had a ban on it. And if they caught you drinking coffee, they would tie you up in a leather bag and throw you in the ocean to drown, which was very extreme, I feel like. And then in some regions, like, they compared the color of coffee with cream added that matches the monk's robe. So the way you prefer your coffee, it would be like the color scheme of the robe. And so that would be how much. But some did not do milk. I think that started in Vienna or Italy, adding cream. But the Ottomans had a huge coffee suppression in 1650. And some even referred to it, like the teetotaling Puritans referred to it as the black wine. And they related it as an alternative to beer. Some places even thought it was almost like a drug usage. And in this story, he talks about all these things, and each place he goes, each one has their different version of how they make the coffee, how they drink the coffee, what it was known for, all this history about it. But some of the places that he goes, it's so crazy how they intertwine the use of drinking coffee with like winning wars. And they say that basically the Ottomans or other people that said no to coffee was because it would make people just sit around and drink the coffee and then get inspired to like take over or whatever. So I found it very amusing. And really, like, I'm never going to just pour myself a cup of coffee without literally thinking how far back this goes. To me, it's just a cup of coffee, but like, oh my gosh, it means so much more in other regions. It's crazy. So of course, this book being called The Devil's Cup, and it's not really appropriate for grade level. However, the way I'm going to tie this in for students and make a lesson plan is I'm going to use second grade, and I am going to use SS 24.2.4, explain the economic processes of production and distribution, including the roles of producers, consumers, goods, and services. Now, I did read the entire book cover to cover, every word on every page. And I know that in Alabama, coffee beans are not naturally from here because our current, like, the environment, it can't really grow good. However, I think I'm going to use it to tie in with the distribution and consumers and all this with that second grade state objective. I think that would be a fun way to tie this book in, showing, you know, supply and demand, how things can start at one point in the world and through distribution and consumers go from, you know, point A to point B. I feel like that would be a really cool way to tie in this book. But overall, I thought it was a good read. It got a little boring in some places, but if you ever just wanted to like know what it was like in Turkey and Istanbul and all these different exotic places that some people never get to go, he really opens your eyes and shows you what it's like to not only travel through these places, but like do it in a way where you're almost like a local. Like he would just go up and talk to these people, and he would immerse himself in the religion and in the experience of the friendship coffee rituals. And it just provides you with just, I don't know, it's just a great way to read and think about the process of coffee, where it came from, how it originated. I would say it's a pretty easy read. He writes very comically, so there's a lot of sarcastic humor in this that I found very, very funny. But overall, pretty good read, and I can't wait to incorporate this into a lesson plan. Thanks.